What's going on, you guys? You're tuned into the Cutting Room Knife Review. I'm your host, Garrett, and today we're taking a look at the Vosteed Porcupine. Now, the Vosteed Porcupine is a king of the budget bangers. This knife is one of the best knives under $100 that is out there right now. It really is. It isn't the best all-around knife, but one of its attributes makes it one of the best you can just get. The blade geometry on this knife is second to none in the category of budget bangers. What's up, guys? I'm Garrett. You're tuned in to the Cutting Room Knife Review, where I review knives, blades, and all things sharp. Please like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more killer knife content. This knife is one of the many budget banger level knives that Vosteed is putting out right now. And Vosteed honestly is just at the top of the heap when it comes to putting out inexpensive knives that just cut way out and above their price range. They're putting out knives that are just so much more quality than they are cost. The value of the knives they give you are insane. And a lot of it comes down to a few things. It's just a few things. Materials are pretty much the same materials that everyone else uses. The blade steel is nothing special. The materials that they make their scales out of and their frames out of is nothing special. What is special is the knife design and their innovation in their locking mechanisms. Just straight up, they have brought to market the top liner lock and the Vanker lock, which honestly, they didn't bring the top liner lock to market, Spyderco did, but they have brought it to the budget market once the patent on Spyderco's compression lock expired. And they've given locking these very high-end locking mechanisms that were originally only available on $150 and up knives from Spyderco, and brought them down into the $65 and up knives. And it's pretty amazing. I really have to tip my hat to Vosteed, because when I first saw Vosteed as a company, I didn't really want to give them respect. I was like, who is this company? Their stuff looks cool. Honestly, the first era of Vosteed stuff was kind of funky looking, in my opinion. There wasn't a ton of stuff that really called my name, but this newer iteration of Vosteed knives is really classic and good looking. You have this knife, the Porcupine. You have the very famous Raccoon. We also have knives like the Martin. And these three knives are very classic, contemporary looking, and they're all under $100. They're made with high quality materials, high quality blade steels for the money, relatively, and they function like knives that are way out of their price class. And this Vosteed Porcupine is no different. Okay, so first off, let's go through the specifications of this knife and the materials that it's made out of, and check what's basically under the hood, so to speak, of the Vosteed Porcupine. Okay, you guys, so the Vosteed Porcupine. The overall length of the Vosteed Porcupine is 7.2 inches. Okay, the blade length is 2.99 inches, so essentially 3 inches. Vosteed is playing with fire here. They're putting it under 3 inches, which does make it legal in a lot of jurisdictions that have a sub 3 inch blade law, but you're talking 1/100th of an inch, and you're hoping that somebody can measure very, very accurately. But basically a 3 inch blade. We have the handle itself is 4.2 inches, essentially. And it's overall, a really good everyday carry ratio of handle to blade, a really good overall length, and a really good like blade length for everyday carry. It's just a well-made knife. It fits good in the hand. It does what it's supposed to do, and it's comfortable. Like I'll say in every single episode, between 8 inches overall with between 3 and 3.5 inch blade is my everyday carry magic numbers. If you're within those ranges, I am apt to think your knife is comfortable in my hands much more than if you're outside those ranges. Now, plenty of knives live outside those ranges, and I like them. Plenty of them. Some of my favorite knives, the Rosie XL, lives way outside those ranges, and I love that knife. But we're talking the Rosie XL. You know, the Kaiser Mini Bulldog is way smaller than that, but we're talking the Kaiser Mini Bulldog. These are one-off knives. Now, when knives live in this in this range of size, it just seems to work for me. It's just what fits in my hands, and that's what I think fits in most people's hands. And that's why you find a lot of knives in this range being successful for everyday carry. Now, we have a blade thickness of 0.118 inches. So we got 11 hundredths of an inch, closer to actually 12 hundredths of an inch. So not incredibly thin, but definitely not thick. It's a flat grind. The grind goes all the way up to here before it flattens out. It's quite a slicey blade. I like this blade. And I'll get into more reasons why. Now, it's a PVD coated 14C28N steel blade. 14C28N is a great budget steel. It takes a great edge. I don't find it to be quite as durable as Nitro V, but it's nice and stainless. It's very corrosion resistant. It takes an edge very well, probably better than Nitro V, and it holds an edge better than Nitro V. It is durable enough. And it's a big toss-up as to whether I'd prefer a Nitro V blade or 14C28N, as they are actually incredibly close, similar, and almost related to each other as a steel. But when we're talking, this is a $60 knife. And I'm sorry, not 60, it's a $69 knife. So closer to a $70 knife. I misquoted that. A $70 knife. And we're talking in the $50 to $75 range. 14C28N is one of the best steels that you're going to get your hands on. It's one of the best options. I don't think it's fancy, but I don't think any of the steels in this price range are fancy. And it's definitely one that works great. And I like the edge that it takes, probably the best out of all the steels in this range. I think this thing gets nice and just laser beam sharp and just stays that way better than most of the other steels that are its competitors. So, that being said, we have micarta scales on this knife, and I really like Vosteed's micarta. It is very smooth, but it is still grippy. They have kind of beveled the edges on it, which is nice. It's a clean cut micarta. This one is in black. They have a couple different variations. I know they have a green and a brown that seem to be out of stock right now. They also have a blue micarta, which is in stock. They also do this knife in G10. I am not a fan of G10 knives. I'll pick micarta over G10 every single day. But I digress. Then we have a stainless steel frame on this knife, and micarta is laying right on top of it, and it is a full frame. I do not believe, no, it is skeletonized. So this frame is skeletonized, at least on the top scale side. It does have some weight reduction to it. The bottom scale side does not appear to be skeletonized, but it does have the top liner lock cut out of it. So that brings me to the locking mechanism. It has a top liner lock, which is essentially a compression lock that is activated by a button, reminiscent of the Spyderco Smock or Sage 6, exact same thing. So what we then have is a wire pocket clip back here. It's a deep carry pocket clip. I'm a big fan of wire pocket clips. They don't seem to snag on much, very lightweight. They do the trick, and on micarta, I think it looks nice and clean. Now it is swappable, so it's ambidextrous. You can swap the pocket clip over here, and that's another great thing about the top liner lock is you can use it with your left hand and just pinch it with your index finger just as easily as you can use it with your right hand and pinch that with your thumb. So this is very much an ambidextrous knife. Left-handed friends rejoice. So the overall weight of this knife is 3.19 ounces. It is quite light. I'm loving that about it. It does feel substantial enough in my hand, but it is a very light carry. Very, very light. Another cool thing about this knife, it has jimping pretty much everywhere. And the jimping is on its frame, a little bit on a lot of it on the top of the knife. Here we have it on the neck right here and the spine, and then we have it further down the spine down here, allowing for traction if we want to get a pinch grip on the knife. We can pinch these finger holes and then put our finger right up here, and we have tons of control for precise pinch grip cuts. Moving on, we have just I guess going back to the jimping, there's just a ton of jimping everywhere on this knife. This knife does run on ball bearings. This knife in particular's action is, I'm not sure whether it's blade geometry and where they put the finger hole, but typically when I do drop shut it, I've had some misflicks with this thing. I find it really hard to do with my middle finger. That one worked for me. Thumb hole is easy, using my thumb to flip it out. I do get some misfires every once in a while. When I do a reverse flick, I'm being very successful today with it, so that's cool. I don't look like an idiot on camera. But I do find that it is a bit snug feeling with the action. There are Vosteeds that have, I would say, superior action to this knife. I don't know whether it's just the blade geometry and the blade doesn't want to carry where the finger hole is on the blade and just how the pressure is put onto the blade for the flick, or if the detent is just stronger. It does have a fairly stiff detent at the bottom. Right here, it is a pretty good little detent right there. Snaps into place, locks into place firmly. There is no blade play. This is a rock solid knife. Now, the one thing that I do want to get into about this knife is the comparison of this knife to other knives. So let us compare this knife to some other knives, and I'm going to do the big reveal of why I think this is one of the kings of the budget bangers. So, comparing the Vosteed Porcupine to other knives. Well, like federal law mandates, that's not true, federal law doesn't mandate this, but knife review law does. We're going to compare this to the Spyderco Para 3 and the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, and we will see that it is very similar sized to the Spyderco Para 3. A bit smaller than the Paramilitary 2, making this knife what I would call schmedium. It's a schmedium knife. It's on the small size of medium. Very comfortable for everyday carry. I like schmedium knives. I think it's a good size. Basically, my hand fits right into the choil of this knife. I don't really have a desire to hold it back here. I can get my pinky over it if I do want to carry it further back, but I tend to carry this knife up into the finger choil, my finger up on the blade. And because the blade does have somewhat of a substantial drop down to it, we are going to get much of the cutting edge, and the belly of it sticks out. Much of the cutting edge is going to get my finger out of the way of it. I just spoke about this a ton in my Kaiser Mini Bulldog review, that when we have blades that go straight out from the handle, a lot of times we get our knuckles in the way of the knife and we wind up just being able to cut with this end of the knife. But because of the belly of this knife and because of this finger choil, putting the blade a little bit lower, we are able to access much of the cutting edge of the blade when we make our cuts. Now, we have a very unique drop point shaped blade here. A lot of drop points, look more along the lines of like the Martin, right? This is more common as far as a drop point shape goes. Sometimes we get more of a spear style drop point where you would have like this high fin. They are, either one is fine, but this is just different, okay? It has kind of a swooping one big belly. It doesn't come down early and then flatten out like you see with the Martin, which is more of a common style for a drop point. And it doesn't have this big spear on the top of it like we would have with, say, the Bodacious or the Sailfin, or maybe the Excalibur. We keep it pretty fairly like angled but straight up there, and then we have one big belly, one big swoop belly down here. And the reason that I say that this knife is my favorite and perhaps one of the best budget bangers of all the budget bangers I reviewed is the blade geometry right here. And I pull out one of my favorite knives of all time. It's in the top 3 of my favorite knives of all time. Yeah, it's either the first or the second. Without further ado, the Oz Machine Co. Roosevelt. And when you look at the Roosevelt and you look at the Porcupine, you go, oh, okay, it's not exactly the same, but you are getting really, really close here. And if you guys don't know what the Oz Roosevelt is, the Oz Roosevelt is an all-American made absolute monster of a knife. This is definitely a grail of mine. It is one of my all-time favorite knives. It's this thing, my Cortex XL by Craig Brown, and my REK Shaman that sit up in the 1, 2, and 3. And I usually give number 1 to the Craig Brown Cortex XL, but honestly, guys, if I was to tell you that this was my favorite knife of all time, I don't think it would be a lie. This is probably the most ergonomic knife of all time. It just melts into my hand. It just fits perfectly into my hand. Everything about this knife is amazing, and the blade geometry on it is absolutely magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. Let me repeat myself again. Absolutely magnificent. And if you disagree with me, I do not care. You are wrong. I am right. I will not argue about this. You can talk to me in the comments all you want. I will tell you you are wrong. This is one of, if not the best knife, out on the market. And you will not convince me otherwise. This thing is just absolute beast, an absolute work of art. It's a work of just utter knife glory and perfection. I'm a Rosie fan through and through. I'm also a Rosie XL fan, but when you put this knife next to the Vosteed Porcupine, it is unreal how close they really got this knife to this knife for a tenth of the price. This is a $750 knife at the lowest. And most of the time, you will find these on the secondhand market much higher than $750. And you can't just go buy one of these. You have to win a lottery if you want to buy one of these. And if you do wind up getting one of Oz's first come first serve sales, you better be there in the first 5 seconds because it will sell out instantly. This knife is utter, just knife magic. It is just utter perfection and glory. Now there's something to be said about the action on this knife and just the way it is all put together and the way it feels. That noise when it thwacks out, the drop shut of it, just the absolute perfection of this knife is definitely beyond this knife. This knife doesn't come anywhere close to the feel as far as action goes of this knife. But the way it sits in your hand and the blade geometry of this knife is so remarkably similar to this knife that it almost hurts my feelings. Vosteed, you almost hurt my feelings. But if you really do want to get close to a rosy experience and you only want to pay $70 instead of $750 to $1,000, yes, people pay $1,000 for this all day long on Blade Binge for the right combination of materials and scales on this knife. They get up there. But so let's say $750, $800, you want to spend $70 instead. Get this knife, and there are a lot of similarities. A whole lot of similarities. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. And because of this, I have to say this is one of the best budget banger designs of all time. They obviously took some notes from this, if not, almost indirectly ripped it off, which I'm actually kind of okay with because they threw their own shtick at it. They threw their own, twist on it, kind of. But you have the double choils for the finger. You basically have the same size of knife. You have a very similar blade shape. You have this edge geometry is really where it comes into being essentially a very similar knife, and you're going to get a very similar cutting experience out of it. And I just think that's wonderful. And it's why this knife is one of the kings of the budget bangers. It really is. And I really have to just tip my hat to Vosteed. They did a great job on this knife, and it reminds us all of one of the greatest knives that's available right now. And so this knife has a ton of wind to it. Its action, I think, is kind of its downfall. There are Vosteeds that have better top liner lock action than this knife. But it's not like anything that it keeps me from enjoying this knife. I do think the finger hole, it could be elongated a little. And if the finger hole was just moved this way, just down the knife, just down the blade a little bit, it would allow you to finger flick the knife, let you open the knife just a little bit better, at least for me. But those are nitpicky things. And otherwise, like, the big picture of this knife is it's amazing. So I highly suggest that if you haven't checked out the Vosteed Porcupine, that you go check out the Vosteed Porcupine. It's a great knife. It is a great bang for your buck. It is essentially what I talk about when I call a knife a budget banger. This is it. And this is going to remain it until another, budget banger comes along and knocks it off its throne. But for blade geometry alone, edge geometry alone, this thing is at the top of its class. So that's that, guys. This is the Vosteed Porcupine. And I am Garrett from the Cutting Room Knife Review. Until next time, you guys, stay sharp.